Hello, my quilting friends. My name is Leah Day, and yes, I have one last heart quilting tutorial for you guys this week. This is Heartburn. So it's a combination of heart shapes and sharp stippling, one of my favorite free motion quilting designs. So what you do to stitch it, you first stitch some sharp stippling. This is a design that's basically a wiggly line that doesn't cross itself, but it comes to sharp points, kind of like flames. That's what we're thinking. I'm stitching nice big open flames. Now to turn sharp stippling into heartburn, you just occasionally stitch a heart shape. And I like to flow around that with more of my sharp stippling flames, just like so. And I like to put a little bit of distance between those heart shapes, but that's entirely up to you. You can stitch it however you want. This design is quilted. It's an independent design, which means that you kind of wiggle it in all directions. But I think it's easiest to quilt your quilts in rows. So you can see I'm kind of stitching this more or less into a row onto my little square. And I think that that's the easiest way to form it on your quilt. So now that I've given this a try and stitched it out pretty quickly here on my little square, let's give this a try on a much bigger machine, my Quilting 21X Elite Longarm. So now we're giving Heartburn a try on my Longarm on a frame. Now this design would work equally well with a home sewing machine on a frame. It's extremely versatile. So we start with some sharp stippling. That's basically our flame shapes. And we're going to swirl around. Think like stippling, only nice sharp points. And I'm going to occasionally form that heart shape. And I want those hearts to really expand, really give us that softness. If you're wanting to quilt bed quilts, the key is to have lots of distance between those lines of stitching. So you can see here I'm stitching on basically a 1/2 inch scale. That means that there is roughly 1/2 inch between these lines of quilting. If you wanted it to be even softer, of course, widen that spacing, make it bigger. And then whenever you come in with your hearts, make those nice and big. The more space that they take up, number one, the more space is secured on your quilt. And then number two, the more softer, the softer your quilt is going to be. And there's no right or wrong way of doing this. You could keep the hearts a little smaller if you didn't want them to really be massively, gigantically huge. The bigger they are, the more they're going to stand out on your quilt. So here I'm going to make a few really, really big ones. And you're going to see that from a distance. You know, it's not going to be easy to ignore. So you got to think about the texture that you want on your quilt. And if your quilt can handle having big shapes like that. You know, some quilts are really, really busy already. You don't want to make it too busy, but at the same time, you are adding that extra texture. As far as I'm concerned, I think you might as well have it stand out and show off. So as you can see, Heartburn is one of those designs that just really, really works well. It flows well. I have stitched a lot of sharp stippling on my Longarm, but you know, I still can stitch myself into a corner, which I just did right here. But you know, it's always as easy as what we did with zippling, and that is get yourself to an edge, travel stitch, and then swirl out with more of that connecting design. In this case, more sharp stippling. So I hope that you enjoyed learning how to stitch this with me. This is going to be a perfect all-over quilting design. If you've got a quilt, a baby quilt, you know, anything like that, bed quilt that you want to stitch really, really quick, this is going to be a terrific design for that. Find many more free motion quilting tutorials split between a home sewing machine and a Longarm, so you can see no matter which style of machine you own. Come and check out my website, leahday.com/FMQ to learn more. Until next time, let's go quilt.